Thank you so much for coming. Before we get started, I'd like to say thank you for your time. And I know a lot of you in the audience that we have worked with or we have known from some other capacities, or I have cited a lot of you in this room. So I really couldn't think of a better audience than this one. Thank you for coming. So our work is focused on crowd diversity and performance in Wikipedia. And we are exploring how does diversity has its unique effect in impacting the crowd performance. And this is a work that I co-authored with Bei Yan, who is also here today. Let's get started with the research question in this paper. We start with a very general and classic inquiry. What makes a large distributed group of individuals so intelligent? So this could be framed as a classic wisdom of the crowd question. And there has been many works exploring many different aspects about why a crowd could be intelligent. We focus on one aspect about the structural composition, and that is the diversity contained in this crowd. There has been no short of literature in both classic management literature and also in online community and online knowledge collaboration literature about diversity's effects on performance. A general overview of the diversity's effects shows that there has been paradoxical results about how does diversity influence the performance. It could be positively associated with the performance because diversity introduces non-redundant information and knowledge and perspective. For example, we have a room of very interdisciplinary audience, and that could bring something positive of the overall collective learning experience. And also, diversity brings in aggregation effect that cancels out individual errors. So say we have a group of people doing upvotes or downvotes evaluation, or when we collectively write something together. The mathematical aggregation of every one of us individual results can cancel out our errors, which could means we get at least a group mean performance, which is better than maybe the bottom individual in this group. But on the other hand, when we study HCI-related communities, a lot of times they do have social interactions happening in this crowd, which also means higher communication costs could happen, and even conflicts could incur in this very diverse crowd of people when they are loosely connected, but they also have to collaboratively work on something. For example, in Wikipedia, we see this case a lot. So what we want to do in this paper is we want to fill in this gap that little research directly investigated how crowd diversity influences performance through the communication-related processes. And we specifically focus on two kinds of processes. One is task conflict, and the other is task communication. We want to build a theoretical model that connects diversity through these two communication processes to performance. And then I will introduce these three key concepts about this model. First is diversity. We define it as the distribution of differences among members of a group regarding a common attribute. The key is that diversity needs to be defined based on some attribute. Specifically, we focus on two kinds of diversity. The first one in Wikipedia is contribution diversity. And the other one is experience diversity. Both of these two measures comes from some past classic papers in HCI literature. For the first one, contribution diversity, we define it as the distribution of difference for an Wikipedia article in terms of how does the editors vary in terms of their edits in that article. So it's a local contribution variety. And for the experience diversity is defined in terms of their total experience in Wikipedia. So for example, I have edited maybe one time in this article and you edited 100 times. That is a big difference in terms of contribution diversity. But if I have edited 3,000 times in Wikipedia overall and you edited 300 times, then that is a quite big difference in terms of experience diversity. We think this kind of separation in terms of definition can shed light on how we view diversity and its very unique consequences in terms of performance. And the second important concept is task communication. It is roughly defined and operationalized as the amount of communication happened in talk pages. Talk page is very important for the editors to communicate in Wikipedia editing activities because it's considered a forum for editors to coordinate their editing works. And some content analysis works about talk page content actually shows that nearly 98% of the content goes into content-related editing discussion, and only 2% are about administrative or about some other peripheral content. So we think talk page amount of communication could be a good operationalization of this concept. The third concept, task conflict, is defined as incompatibilities among group members in that Wikipedia article. And a behavioral manifestation we use here is edit reverts, which is also commonly used in past literature. So a revert is defined when an editor changes an article back to the previous version of it. We think this is a manifestation of an editor really disagrees with some content shown in that change, and that so much so that the editor wants to remove it and delete this version and go back to the previous one. Now with these three theoretical concepts ready, we can go to our theoretical model development. Our research question is about how to resolve the paradoxical effects of diversity. And one key point of departure from past literature in simple crowdsourcing is that we think Wikipedia editing is not a simple aggregation result. It involves complex social interactions and collective dynamics. So we want to introduce task communication and conflict as two mediators on the relationship between diversity and performance. So here is our path model with all the hypotheses. You can see it's a quite complex one with 9 hypotheses. If you're interested in how we develop each one of the hypotheses and why is hypothesis in that direction, please refer to our article. We have very detailed explanation for each one of them. But I will skip it here and directly introduce our data and methods section. So for the data collection part, we used randomized stratified sampling from 9 wiki projects. And the 9 wiki projects are collected according to a Razi and al. Paper because they thought this could, and also Couture and Kraut in 2008 about conflict, because we want to control for the content or categorical level controversy or conflict which could be involved in our conflict measurement. So we collected 6,000 articles from these 9 wiki projects proportionately to their actual number in wiki projects in total. And we excluded nearly 100 articles with only one editor, resulting in should be 5,899 articles. And the DV used in the model is performance measured by article quality score. And IV, we have 2 different IVs, contribution diversity and experience diversity. I would not go into the detailed operationalization here, but if you're interested, please talk to us later. And then the 2 mediators are task communication and task conflict. And here is the final mediation result that we want to focus on. So the first result I want to talk about is that if you look at the top path of contribution, diversity, and performance, you can see generally it has a positive direct impact on the performance. And also, if you go to the indirect path through task conflict, you can see that contribution diversity, which means our local diversity in terms of my edit amount and your editing amount, or you can roughly think of it as how concentrated or how varied we are in terms of our interest in this paper, in this article, then that reduces task conflict, and reduced conflict can result in better performance. So this, both the direct path and the indirect path, shows that contribution diversity generally is a positive predictor of performance. On the other hand, if you look at the experience diversity, and its connection with performance is generally negative. Experience diversity, to remind you again, is about our difference in terms of the total experience in Wikipedia. I may be very experienced, or I could be an administrator, and you are just a very inexperienced Wikipedia newbie. In this case, we could have very different commitment level or familiarity with the Wikipedia policy and norms, which could result in huge difference in terms of how we edit the article. So in that case, directly, experience diversity is negatively correlated with performance. And also, experience diversity goes through increased task conflict path, and then increased conflicts could decrease the performance. So in general, it's a more negative force than contribution diversity. And another interesting thing is that both types of diversity positively predict task communication. You can see one coefficient of 0.91 and one coefficient of 0.52. So both kinds of diversity could result in more communication on talk page. So some kind of diversity is actually healthy because it helps us to realize that we are very different, and sometimes we go to the talk page to resolve our conflicts. And in that case, more communication could be a good thing for the overall performance of the crowd. One last thing is, if you focus on the triangle between conflict, communication, and performance, you can see that task conflict intuitively is a negative predictor of performance. But on the other hand, we have task communication. It can help reduce the harmful effects of conflict if we go to that indirect path. So when we have conflict, a good way to remedy that harmful impact is that we do not just revert each other's work or just delete some part of your previous edit. We could go to the talk page and have more increased communication, which hopefully could result in increased performance. So those are the 4 points that I want to highlight in this model result. And of course, we have some more specific discussion about it. If you're interested, please talk to us or refer to the article. And lastly, I want to go back to a higher level and give you some more abstract takeaway messages. First thing is the importance of including communication variables in the study of online crowd collaboration. There has been no short of literature in terms of the effects of diversity and its performance impact. But I think one unique contribution of this paper is that we introduced two processes variables which could help hopefully resolve the paradoxical consequences of diversity. Why is it positive in some conditions? Why is it negative in some other conditions? And how could we really utilize some of the findings to help resolve the conflicts in the community and maybe increase performance in this community? And lastly, we want to push one step further about the diversity study, in that we think you don't simply lump all the concepts around diversity into one term, because diversity is such a complex concept. Our results has shown that different types of diversity result in very unique consequences. So it's very beneficial if in the future work to separate different kinds of diversity and be specific about what kind of attributes you are really talking about. This could help study very different effects on crowds' communication processes and collaboration dynamics. This work is not short from limitations. For one thing, we are using cross-sectional data, so we cannot make causal claims. All this past analysis shows some causal implications that we hope to find in future works. And the other thing is we only collected articles from wiki projects because they provide a much better DV operationalization. So we are conservative about its generalizability to all kinds of Wikipedia articles due to their slightly different editing patterns. And lastly, we only focused on different types of diversity in this work. So in the future work, there has been lots of literature showing that conflicts could be complicated too. There are very different types of conflicts in Wikipedia editing patterns. So that could be one future direction for our work. All right, with that, I'd like to thank you for your time, and I'd like to take your comments or questions. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Victoria Bilotti from Parks. Very, very interesting research, and I'm sort of interested in the interpersonal conflict aspect, which is, you know, you took it as revisions, but I wonder whether in extending the work, you could go into seeing like who, you know, how many times one individual will revert another specific individual's edits to see if there is certain people who have specific disagreements with each other, and whether that's a factor in increasing the amount of conflict. Do you understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So yeah, rather than just looking at all revisions as equal, there should be one person maybe reverting another specific person's edits, for example.
You mean giving weights to certain individuals for their reversion?
Yeah, just looking to see how much it's sort of representative of a sort of conflict relationship between, you know, two individuals who are fighting over this page and reverting each other's edits and arguing about it. I think that would be kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's a very interesting comment. We didn't do that because our unit of analysis in this model is a crowd, which is the article in general. So we are using this measurement to reflect the general amount of conflicts or reverts in this article. Yeah, but I do see the value in going deeper and focus on more maybe micro level. Yeah.
Is that data available? I mean, can you see who is changing whose edits? You can. Okay.
We can.
Yeah, so you could do it.
Yeah, it's doable.
Bob Kraut from Carnegie Mellon.
I'm familiar with your works, of course.
So you're using this, I guess this is a question because you didn't have enough time to talk about the theoretical rationale. You're using the same term, diversity, in two quite different ways here. Contribution diversity you might think of as kind of a structure, the way this work is structured, whether it's concentrated in a small set of people or spread more evenly, while what you're calling experience diversity is kind of an individual difference, whether you've got old-timers and relative newcomers in the worker pool. So I was wondering if you could provide a little bit of the background rationale for why you're kind of using the same term, and what's the rationale for why you would expect those different kinds of diversity to have different effects?
For one thing, I think we actually started the paper draft with two different terms, more similar to your work, actually. And then I think the terms actually got some confused feedback from the reviewers. They suggested us to align the two terms to make it more accessible, I guess, for a general audience. And then on the other hand, we also see the value that we want to align the two terms to show that they all belong to the big category of diversity, and then they focus on some different part about the common attributes of that crowd in terms of, like you said, local contribution or global involvement in terms of Wikipedia experience. And also, I think the differential consequence of these two measurements with this term or other terms has been commonly used in literature. So we do see differential consequences in other works, though they are not in the same model. Some people did the first one, some people did the second one, and they sometimes show positive force, sometimes show a negative influence. So we thought we want to combine the two and really see them side by side. Yeah, thank you.